E.N.D here. Today I want to discuss another card in Magic the Gathering. I'm going to discuss a card that currently is spiking in price. I'm going to discuss Angel's Grace. This beauty of a card from Time Spiral. Time Spiral, we're talking about a set released in 2006. This card is a rare card, and you have to remember that during Time Spiral period, mythic rarity didn't exist, so we have only rare cards, rare, uncommon, or common. So this card was printed as rare. For 1 white, you have split second. That means that as long as the spell is on this deck, players can't play spells or activate abilities unless they are mana. You can't lose the game, your opponent can't win the game, and if your life is reduced to less than 1, it is 1 instead. So you can imagine how strong this card can be in certain decks. So let's have a look at the price analysis of this card and see why this card is spiking in price. First, obviously, we're going to see the Time Spiral version. You have to remember that, as I said, during Time Spiral, there were no mythics, there were only rare, uncommon, and common, and also you have to consider that in 2006, the print run of these sets was very relatively low compared to today's standard. So that's a very important factor in our analysis. Here we can see that the card is being traded at around 1350. This is the high point of this card. You can see here the graph has spiked. Maximum ever reached was nearly $16, $15.56, and lowest was $2. And I remember that during some time, Angel's Grace didn't have any value at all. As you can see here, lowest reach was $2. Now obviously we're seeing a spike, a very heavily spike in price, and we're going to see why later on. So let's have another look at the foil version of the Time Spiral card. Foil version here also we can see that the card is slowly going up in price, currently being traded at around $22.50, $22.49. Highest ever reached was $67.50, $70, which I don't think that foil version of Angel's Grace will ever reach that price. There is another copy that we have to consider about Angel's Grace. There was a reprint, and the reprint happened during Modern Masters. During Modern Masters 1, that was the first Modern Masters released for Magic the Gathering. During this set, Angel's Grace was reprinted and was also reprinted at rarity. Obviously, during Modern Masters, Mythic exists, the Mythic rarity exists, but this card was printed at rare. So obviously there are more copies out there if you compare it, if it was a Mythic. The card, the rare version of Modern Masters, you can see here, there's also a spike in price and currently being traded at around, let's say, $13. Highest average was around $16, which is the price range of this particular card. $13 is the current price market of Angel's Grace. Let's see also the foil version. Foil version, here you can see here, foil version of Modern Masters, also slowly going up in price, currently being traded around $19.54 or $20. So why this card is spiking in price? Why? Obviously, one main reason is this particular version of E.N.D deck. This particular modern deck, this particular deck is using a playset of Angel's Grace that is 4 copies. But also in this particular deck there are also 4 cards of Tassa Oracle, and this particular combination of Tassa Oracle and Angel's Grace is what is making, first of all, this deck quite good, and also the price spiking for Angel's Grace. And this is what I want to talk about today. There are out there a lot of players, a lot of collectors that have cards from this particular period. We're talking period of Time Spiral 2006, where we know that the print run was relatively quite low. There are players, collectors that have these cards, copies of these cards, copies in their collections that didn't have any value at all, maybe $1 maximum, that because of a card that was released in a new set, in this case Tassa Oracle in Theros Beyond Death, because a new card was released in a new set, those cards became quite demanded. Supply is low because not a lot of players have these type of copies. Probably these are or heavily played, or they were traded off, or they were left somewhere to be damaged. There are out there very few supply of this type of cards. There is a huge demand because new cards and new sets, and therefore cards from that period, they are getting quite expensive. And I'm sure that going forward, Ikoria, Lair of Behemoth, Zendikar Rising, all these sets will have new cards in these sets that will make cards from older sets become expensive. Remember there's another important thing that you have to remember. All reprintable cards will get reprinted. So be very careful, be extremely careful what you buy, what you sell, because if you have a card like Angel's Grace currently being traded around $13, if this card gets a reprint, this card will go back to $3 to $4. So be extremely careful what you buy and what you sell. You can leave me always a comment below. Here's the subscription button. Subscribe for my channel for more and more interesting videos about Magic the Gathering and the collectible world.